Everybody out there that's been down, man, with the kids from day one. I really do appreciate it.
have the story about police showing up at Justin Bieber's house. Let's go to it now.
In and out of the house.
Justin Bieber's Southern California mansion was surrounded by law enforcement serving a felony search warrant, all tied to an egg vandalism incident at his neighbor's house.
Mr. Bieber was present, and he was not arrested nor exonerated at this time.
The 19-year-old singing sensation is accused of throwing eggs at the neighbor's home last Thursday evening, which TMZ says was captured on this cell phone video.
I see you. I got another one for you, actually. Yeah, come right over here, you call the cops.
Deputies say the damage estimate is roughly $20,000. That's what makes this a felony case.
I get that it was done with eggs, which makes you feel that it's a lower-level crime, but a felony crime is a felony crime no matter how you commit it.
While looking for surveillance video and other evidence, deputies also arrested another person on a narcotics violation.
He was staying in a bedroom when we came there, and that's where the drugs were located in plain view. I believe it's Xanax and ecstasy.
This isn't the first time Bieber has been in trouble with his neighbors. They've complained about him speeding through the community at more than 100 miles per hour.
Even that I love him, it's very, very noisy for us.
Last March, one neighbor also accused the singer of spitting in his face and threatening his life.
So it looks like the neighbor wars continue for Justin Bieber out there in California. We've got with us now legal correspondent and columnist attorney John Burns, and he's got more on the Bieber story. Hi, John.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Good to see you.
This was just crazy when we saw this happen yesterday. We were watching the live pictures and the police, the helicopter, and there were like half a dozen police cars outside his home, and we're like, what is going on there?
It's crazy. It just seems somewhat excessive to have so many police coming, and they came with the battering ram, amongst other things, to basically serve a search warrant on Justin Bieber in connection with basically an egging on his neighbor's house. But obviously, his neighbor is claiming that pretty serious damage was made, about $20,000 in damage. So they're taking it pretty seriously, clearly.
So what kind of damage are we talking about? What did the eggs do to the house exactly?
I guess there were broken windows and other types of damage. And obviously, in Calabasas, houses are pretty expensive. So I can imagine when you have multi-million-dollar houses, a couple eggs could cause some damage. So obviously, clearly, the neighbor's claiming $20,000.
Wow. And now here's the thing. When Justin allegedly was egging the neighbors were out on their balcony, I think.
Right.
And then there's some cell phone video or something that's surfacing. What do you know about that?
Yeah, not much. The video is purportedly being, TMZ has evidence that there is a video, but most people have not seen that video yet. But obviously, that would be very damaging evidence for Justin Bieber if he's implicated in the video.
This is the neighbor who says that he actually taped him doing this.
Exactly. The neighbor claims that he taped Justin Bieber egging his house from his second-floor balcony, and then he has video footage of that.
So, okay, so say if he's charged, because I don't think he's been charged yet, would this be a misdemeanor, felony? What kind of charges?
It could be either. It determines right now it's a felony. Search warrant was executed based upon the damage amount, because he's claiming $20,000 in damages, which is pretty significant. But I would highly doubt that he would be charged with a felony for egging someone's house. That would be very, very far-fetched.
Do you think that the police presence was excessive?
Yes, it was incredibly excessive. I mean,
well, why did they bring the battering ram? Did they think that they were going to need to use
12
them?
detectives, 8 police cars. It almost looked like they were making a huge drug bust, but they obviously did take one of his friends into custody for drugs, so there were evidence of drugs on the premises, so that's very serious.
Talk about that. That was a rapper friend of his?
Yeah, so a rapper named Lil Za or Lil Ra, they've been friends for a very, very long time, and he was actually in the house, and it's reported that narcotics were found close to this young man, and they took him into custody for narcotics possession.
Police thought it was cocaine initially,
exactly,
not so sure now.
Exactly, not so sure. Nothing's been verified with respect to what type of drug it was.
This neighborhood, this is an exclusive enclave, right? I mean, it's a gated community, and all the homes are like million-dollar mansions, like what you saw in the video of Bieber's home. And from what I understand, he has had some run-ins with his neighbors before, because remember we were reporting about him speeding around the neighborhood, and then they were, throwing the loud parties, and so it sounds like there's some bad blood here in the neighborhood.
Absolutely, they have a sordid history of different disagreements and disputes, just like you mentioned, definitely. So I think it could just be another run-in that's going awry with his neighbors. So hopefully, I mean, for Justin Bieber's sake, you hope it gets resolved amicably.
What is going to be the next step in this case?
So police raided the house with 12 detectives yesterday trying to find any evidence linking Justin Bieber to the egging. And I'm not really sure what type of evidence you would find. Would you find a big refrigerator full of eggs, or would you find empty shells? I'm not really sure what kind of evidence they're going to find, but ultimately if they find evidence, then they would pursue charges at that point.
Maybe they were hoping that he had his own video surveillance cameras on the exterior of his own home that could be used to capture
Very good
whatever
point.
might
Very,
have
very
happened.
good point, too. So we'll see how this case unfolds.
All right, let's move on. We've got Chris Brown, who was in court right here in D.C. last week.
Right. So we all know he was basically charged with a misdemeanor assault in connection with the melee or altercation that took place outside the W Hotel back in October. So he was in court last week, and the prosecution offered him a plea deal where they offered that he would plead down to a simple assault instead of the higher charge of misdemeanor. But Chris rejected that charge. He pronounced his innocence and said he's prepared to move forward with trial. So he's slated to be back in court in D.C. on February 20th.
And he has this high-profile lawyer, Mark Garagos, and I understand it was Garagos that actually recommended that he plead that way, right?
Absolutely. So they're still, and Garagos is trying to get the surveillance tape from the W Hotel and from the streets adjacent to that hotel to kind of verify and confirm that he had no involvement in the incident.
And isn't he already dealing with some previous charges that were connected to Rihanna?
Absolutely. Still on probation from the 2009 assault of then-girlfriend Rihanna. So he's still in the process of engaging in doing community service as a result of that punishment.
So due back in court, was it February?
February 20th here in D.C. And then we'll see at that point. And Garagos is saying that he's ready to move forward with trial in this case.
All right. A-Rod is in the news, and he's fighting those charges.
Yeah, Alex Rodriguez actually filed a federal lawsuit on Monday against Major League Baseball in a last-ditch effort to vacate his year-long drug-related suspension, which is pretty serious. And this comes after a federal arbitrator basically downgraded that sentence from 211 games to 162 games. But nonetheless, I mean, a whole season-long suspension is pretty serious for A-Rod because he makes about $25 million a year.
However, there was an interview done recently where Anthony Bosch, I believe is his name, he is saying that he actually supplied him with these performance-enhancing drugs. How is that going to affect his case? Oh, well, that basically was the end-all, be-all for his case, because Anthony Bosch was the person that owned the Biogenesis lab who was supplying A-Rod with these performance-enhancing drugs. And he actually went on 60 Minutes over the weekend and told Scott Pelley that he was getting paid $12,000 a month by A-Rod to provide him with these drugs.
Sounds like you're saying he doesn't have much of a case.
Well, yeah, so basically the case is pretty much over in terms of the decision by Major League Baseball because they already issued the suspension. Now he's trying to fight that somehow with a lawsuit against Major League Baseball, but I really don't see how it could work out for his benefit, to be quite honest.
Okay, all right, we're going to move on to Kanye West, the primary suspect in a battery investigation.
Yeah, and this is just really, really disturbing. Kim Kardashian was in L.A. yesterday traveling around, and obviously she's always being bombarded with a flock of paparazzi. She was entering an office building, and a gentleman, an 18-year-old unnamed guy at this moment, helped her get into the office building. But as he was helping her in the office building, he simultaneously began ranting and uttering racial slurs and homophobic slurs to the paparazzi. And Kim took offense to that and said that's inappropriate conduct. And then he allegedly turned on her and began making racial comments to her. Kim was very, very shaken by the incident, called Kanye. Kanye came to the scene, confronted this man, and it's reported that he then punched him. Police came. Kanye was no longer on the scene, but the man is claiming that he intends to file charges against Kanye West.
Do we know what he said, what the man said to Kim?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of racial slurs?
He basically called Kim an N-lover. So obviously that's very, very offensive.
Yeah, and there were some other choice words, but that was a big one.
Yeah, and then obviously a number of other things as well.
All right, and then, you know, we're hearing maybe there were some witnesses. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, obviously paparazzi. I mean, there's tons of people wherever Kim goes. There's tons of people, tons of cameras. So I think as this case unfolds, we'll get more and more information about what actually happened.
And wasn't Kanye involved in an incident with a photographer in July where he was scuffling with the photographer as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So he has 2 misdemeanor charges as a result of that incident. He pled not guilty in November, but we're still waiting to see how that case unfolds as well. So Kanye, a battery charge could be very, very significant in terms of his legal run-ins.
Attorney John Burns, thanks so much for stopping by today.
All right, thank you guys very much.
You always have your finger on the pulse.
Okay,
What's going on with celebrity
gossip?
Thank you.
Now courts are questioning whether his so-called confession has legality and if it will be admissible in court. Joining me now to discuss his case and more is John Burns, entertainment lawyer and legal analyst. John, thanks so much for being here. How are you?
Good to see you, Rick. You're doing great.
Killed them all, of course. Muttered in a bathroom with a hot mic. Is this admissible in court?
Well, you know, it's a number of different things. Obviously, from a defense perspective, it's not a statement you want, but it's a really ambiguous statement. You have to really think about it. He was really speaking as a narrative. He was almost talking as if voices were talking to him. So he wasn't directly responding to a question, and his mental state obviously is an issue here too. And then you also have to think about from a admissibility standpoint too, from a Fourth Amendment perspective, did he have a reasonable expectation of privacy in a restroom? Some people could argue yes, because he agreed to, he agreed to be audio taped, he agreed to be videotaped, but then a good defense attorney would say everyone has an expectation of privacy in a bathroom, no matter what, if you agree to it or not. So in terms also of admissibility, you have to look at authentication. Was that audio tape authenticated? Was it actually him? What's the chain of custody? Was it edited? So it's a number of different things that go into that.
What's the contextual legality of it? Because there's a context to a confession where it's I'm being interrogated. I confess to you that I did this. I've signed paper. Going into a bathroom and muttering to yourself, there are so many different contexts that could be applied. So
many different contexts. As I said before, he wasn't answering a direct question. Yes. It was more really like we couldn't really figure out the mutterings. There was a number of different things that were really ambiguous about that statement. So it's not this overarching, really direct confession that most people are suggesting it is.
Now, apparently Hollywood is frantically looking for true crime stories to turn into movies and TV shows. I'm curious, what kind of legal work goes into telling these stories, and what kind of fears plague filmmakers, novelists, podcasters when they're telling stories that involve the justice system and real lives?
Well, you want to make it as credible and as authentic as possible, and I think obviously it really has those two crucial elements that people love to see in terms of crime dramas. It has mystery, it has conflict, so obviously these stories do very, very well. With that being said, it takes a lot of diligence. If you think about the Durst case, the directors and producers spent years with him really digging deep into that case, and lawmakers and police and prosecutors just don't have that time. And that's why these crime dramas work so well behind the camera.
So what you say and who you say it to definitely holds a lot of weight in the court system, as you were saying before.
Absolutely.
I mean, not in a bathroom, but actually in a court. In the Suge Knight case, we said Bone admits to fighting with Suge before being mowed over. Could the court actually see that as self-defense, considering that the fight was before Suge Knight got in a car and ran somebody over?
No. So this is huge here. This is huge. So this Mr. Sloan's coming out saying he was punching Suge Knight through the driver's side window as he pulled up. So he actually prevented Suge Knight from getting out of the car. He made this statement. So if these statements are credible and they're deemed admissible, this is huge. It completely turns the case on its head and really validates and bolsters Suge Knight's self-defense claim.
Wow. The lines for liability on the gay case are blurred, literally blurred. Why wasn't T.I. included in the first suit? And what does the Marvin Gaye family have to gain from including him now?
Well, they're not only including T.I., they're including Universal Music, they're including Interscope Records, including Star Trek Entertainment, amongst others.
Is it just more money?
More money. First of all, more money, but they also want to persuade the court to issue an injunction. Right now, they're not only pushing for more money, but they also want Marvin Gaye to be included as one of the co-writers on the song. So, and along with what they did on Tuesday, they filed an injunction to basically halt the sales, performance, distribution of blurred lines for a period of time until they can figure out if he's going to be assigned to be a co-writer, and they want to figure out the royalty payments down the road. So more money, more money, more money.
So who should split the profits at the end of the day, you think?
So I think, we have to look at the internal composition. So Marvin Gaye had a copyright in the composition, in the actual song, not in the sound recording. And that's why the jury found it appropriate to assess liability just strictly against the songwriters, and that was Pharrell Williams and Robin Thicke. With that being said, I think the appropriate parties have already been, held liable. So I don't think the record labels and T.I. really had much to do with it.
Do you think this is the Gaye family getting a little greedy?
I don't know if it's greed. I think it's definitely trying to put your best foot forward and really press for all options. Obviously, I think they have a great claim in the sense that Marvin Gaye obviously produced great music, but I think probably they're being advised by counsel to pursue additional types of relief.
John, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Ricky. I appreciate it.
A Brooklyn woman is accused of stealing $85,000 from a work bank account in order to buy Beyonce tickets, clothes, and other items. Sharon Davidson, the ex-director of the North Flatbush Business Improvement District, was indicted on charges including grand larceny and scheming to defraud. Brooklyn District Attorney Ken Thompson says Davidson used the work account as her own personal piggy bank. Investigators found that she allegedly spent $13 grand on PayPal to buy clothes and jewelry, $3,000 at Fresh Direct, $600 on Beyonce tickets, and $400 on manicures and pedicures, among other lavish purchases. Davidson abruptly resigned from the BID last year. The nonprofit helps promote businesses on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn. The businesses pay an annual fee that's used for promotion and local improvements. The group was in a large deficit when Davidson left, prompting an audit and the discovery of the fraud. Davidson's attorney says his client says she is innocent and looks forward to clearing her name in court. That is all we have for Top Stories today. I'm Ricky Camilleri. Thank you so much for watching. You guys should stick around because The Fault in Our Stars author John Green and actress Halston Sage join Nancy Red to chat about their new film, Paper Towns.
Well, they have it all, of course, the looks, the money, the fame, but that doesn't seem to be enough for quite all of them.
No, not at all. And these days, celebrities are finding themselves in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Here with the latest on celebrity legal drama is legal correspondent John Burns. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys, too.
And welcome to our new abode.
I
This is
know,
the first time
I
you've been
like
on our
it.
new
It's
set,
beautiful.
yeah?
No, it's beautiful. I love it.
Nice and sleek. All right, Suge Knight.
Yes.
The case is moving forward. What's happening?
It's moving forward. So he's supposed to appear in court today, and the court's going to make a determination. The prosecution has to present some evidence, and the judge is going to determine whether or not it can move forward with the trial. Because usually in the preliminary hearing stage, you have to set forth your case. And this is a murder case, so they have to really set forth enough evidence, enough early evidence to prove that they actually can try this case moving forward.
What do we know about the circumstances so far?
Yeah, I mean, he's facing attempted murder, and 2 hit and runs. This dates back to an incident that took place in September where he hit 2 men with his car, ultimately killing one of them. So he's been in jail for the last couple months, and he has a $25 million bail, so he's not been able to get out. So he's been incarcerated for the last few months.
So what is his alibi?
He's claiming that he was acting in self-defense. He said that he was being ambushed and these men were punching him and he was trying to get away and flee the scene, and the only way he could flee the scene was actually mowing over these 2 men, ultimately killing a guy by the name of Terry Carter.
Oh, wow. And I understand that the prosecutors now are really going to great lengths to try to recreate the scene?
Exactly. So they've been recreating the scene over the last couple of days to kind of really showcase how the incident unfolded. Because oftentimes in cases like this, especially when you're trying to prove something so difficult, you really want to get as much detail as possible.
All right, let's talk about his health right now. You were seeing him being wheeled in. How is he doing physically?
He's not doing great physically. He's been rushed to the hospital on 3 different occasions. He's having heart problems, having eye problems. He claims that he's now almost fully blind. So a number of different health issues. And he's, on the last couple of weeks, he's been really advocating and asking the court to let him see his own personal physician, which the court has denied every single time. So he's still going through the county physicians, but he's not doing very well health-wise.
Oh, okay, let's move to the Terrence Howard problems with his ex case.
Yeah, so his ex is really trying to seek to kind of hit him in the pocketbook. She's seeking about $500,000 from him. So they got divorced back in 2013, and as part of that divorce, they entered into a spousal support agreement, which we see all the time. But pursuant to that agreement, Terrence Howard had to pay her about $6,000 a month, and now she claims that Terrence Howard's behind on those payments to the tune of about $100,000. In addition to that, there was also a stipulation in that agreement that said if he makes more than $62,000 a quarter, she gets 21% of that excess. And we all know Terrence Howard's doing exceptionally well with Empire. He makes about $125,000 an episode. So she's trying to really grab a hold of some of those proceeds.
But his attorneys have a different take on the story.
Absolutely. They're saying that he was blackmailed to enter into that agreement back in 2013. They're claiming that she actually had some photos and some videos of him that were very incriminating. So in essence, that she put him under duress to enter into this agreement because she basically said that she was going to release these to the media.
What do we know about these pictures and videos?
We know that they were enough to push him to move forward with this agreement. He claims that they were very incriminating and that they could have possibly ruined his career.
These are pictures of him in the shower?
In the shower and other places. So we don't know. We haven't seen them, obviously. So.
What is the relationship between Terrence Howard and his former ex-wife? Because there's some allegations about how he's handling his money related to this person.
Right. There's allegations that he was running some of his income through one of her businesses, so I guess they still have a pretty good relationship because Michelle Gant, the lady who was making his assertion, she's claiming that Terrence Howard was hiding money from her through the ex-wife's business. So he's now on to his third marriage, actually his fourth marriage, because he married his first wife twice. So kind of an interesting story. I guess he's a serial person that loves to get married over and over again. He believes in his freaking marriage.
Well,
clearly.
Maybe after this case he won't. All right, last week we were airing this horrible 911 call that Sandra Bullock had to make last summer when she had an intruder in her home. Let's take a listen to that audio.
I have a safe door in my bedroom, and I've locked it, and I've locked in the closet right now.
So you can really hear the fear in her voice. This intruder is in her home. She's calling 911. We are hearing the tape now. Why is this tape now just coming out?
Just because the trial is finally moving forward, so the case is finally moving forward, so they actually played that in open court, which was obviously very, very chilling, and obviously a frightened Sandra Bullock just calling the police, so that's very, very scary. But the gentleman, Joshua Corbett, he's facing burglary, weapons possession, and stalking, so those are some very, very serious charges.
How did he get inside her home, and had he been there before?
I think there is some suspicion that he had been there before. I mean, I think he just broke in, and that's still kind of getting kind of flushed out. But, you know, obviously it was a very scary situation for everyone involved.
Now, she on the tape says, "I'm in my safe room."
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So I guess she had a safe room within her closet, so probably another compartment within her closet.
Oh.
I don't know if you guys saw that movie Safe House, Safe Room, or whatever back in the day, but similar to you have this compartment where it's enclosed and basically secure and very guarded, so you're able to, no one can intrude it, which is good. So I guess most celebrities, especially in LA, they do have safe houses and safe rooms within their house.
So she saw this individual inside her home, went into her bedroom, locked the door, and then went into her closet, then into the safe room, and guided police all the way to her house.
Exactly, and guided police to her house, and ultimately, obviously, got the man into custody.
So the police came in time, and they were actually capturing him in the house, on her premises?
Yeah, it's scary, and he was clutching a love letter to her, which is even really bizarre.
Are there questions about his mental health?
I think that's going to get flushed out too. The defense, I'm sure, is going to bring up some issues in terms of was he sane, was he some type of mental issues too. So I mean, that's going to be something that the defense will surely bring up at some point.
That's got to be extra scary since she's a mom. She has a son, and you got to keep those intruders out at all costs.
No, at all costs. It's very scary.
Jonathan Burns, celebrity legal attorney. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Things are always heating up in the legal world when it comes to the stars and whether the celebrities are fighting over a divorce or maybe they're suing the paparazzi. There's always plenty of court drama that's going on.
Yeah, Jonathan Burns, our attorney here, is here. Our attorney, yeah.
Oh, I like that.
We put you on the top, baby. That's right.
I like that.
Here to talk about new celebrity gossip. You know, we've got tons of celebrity stuff. I kind of want to go local first and talk. This is a little celebrity local, though. You all remember when Charlie Sheen came to town like a year or two ago? It was after he was going, crazy. And there was some D.C. police officers who gave him an escort from the airport to his gig on stage because, well, there's traffic, as we know, and lights and sirens. He even tweeted a picture of going like, what, 80 or 90 miles per hour. You remember that picture?
Yep.
So now that police officer was demoted from commander.
Right.
He's suing for the demotion.
Right, exactly. So a guy named Hilton Burton, he was not involved in the escort, but he ultimately testified before the D.C. City Council. And before the D.C. City Council, he told the City Council that it's very regular occurrence that they do provide escorts to celebrities. And ultimately, he alleges in his complaint that he was thereby retaliated against after that and demoted 2 ranks.
Well, Police Chief Kathy Lanier says she did not write off on this. She didn't. She didn't authorize this escort from the airport.
Right, and she's very adamant and says it's against police department protocol, and she's very, very up in arms about the incident and actually is being very, very vocal about it as well.
And wasn't the officer actually cleared of charges, and didn't the promoter actually pay back the overtime money?
Exactly. The promoter paid back the overtime money, so no money was lost by the police department. But he ultimately, Mr. Burton's claimed that he was demoted and retaliated against strictly for his testimony before the D.C. City Council.
But then Lanier says, the chief of police says, no, that's not why. It was on his performance as a whole, she claims. That's why he got the demotion. So where could this go in court?
Well, it could go a number of different places, but he's seeking a $6 million judgment. So he's suing for $6 million in punitive and compensatory damages, and he's also seeking to get reinstated to his commander position. So I think he's trying to allege a lot of things. I can't imagine he's ever going to see $6 million. I don't think the police department acted with maliciousness, with malice to obviously effectuate such a judgment to that degree. I think it might ultimately settle. I think they're going to try to get this under the radar as quickly as possible.
You know, what does it feel out there? A lot of people talking about this. If they believe what the police department is saying as their excuse to demote the commander, in light of what happened with the Charlie Sheen case, I mean, it's kind of like, really?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting how this unfolds. And let me important thing to note, this is not the first time this gentleman sued the police department. He sued in the past for discrimination. He actually sued Kathy Lanier in her personal capacity for some type of claim as well. So he's pretty litigious.
Yeah, work can't be too much fun.
No, I imagine so.
Right now around that guy. I mean, you'd be too scared to say the wrong thing next to him, you know?
Right. No, you're completely right.
Did he prevail in any of those earlier cases?
He settled out. So, I mean, nothing was really disclosed in terms of the settlement.
Interesting. All right, J-Lo's in the news. Now, J-Lo is accusing her former driver of blackmail. What's going on, Jonathan?
Yeah, so it's an interesting case. So her former driver and former security officer actually sued her back in April for a breach of a purported security arrangement. So she is countersuing him for $20 million for extortion and defamation. So I think it's one of those cases where she's using this countersuit as leverage to ultimately try to get him to basically relinquish his claim against her.
And what does he say that she did?
Well, he's saying that she basically breached a contract they had for him to provide security services for her. And now she's saying that he is ultimately extorting her. He's saying that he told her that you have to pay me $2.8 million or I'm going to disclose some sensitive and personal information I learned over the course of our employment.
Well, what does he have
that is
on
blackmail.
Exactly. I mean,
But I mean, how do you prove these things? It's he said, she said. Where's it going to go?
Right. And I think, I mean, again, I think she's using this as leverage. I mean, oftentimes you see people counterclaim or countersuit just to put the other person in a bad position too, so you ultimately can settle or get the claim.
Yeah, your gut feeling is settlement?
Either settlement or she will have enough leverage over him for him to kind of dismiss his claims voluntarily.
Now, don't the stars usually have some kind of a contract with any employee that works for them, that anything that goes on is private and cannot be disclosed? Those are kind of standard,
and Jennifer Lopez did have that. So, and that's been alleged in her counterclaim too, that he can't disclose this information even if he wanted to, because he'd be in violation of their non-disclosure.
But he's trying to use anything he can to get that money, it looks like.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to another celeb, Mike Tyson. So he's performing on stage at a theater, and there was a threat over Twitter.
Right.
And fill us in about this one.
This is a really, really interesting issue. So, I mean, Twitter, NYPD had to subpoena Twitter to disclose the identity and IP address of this individual that basically made threatening tweets against the Long Acre Theater where Mike Tyson's currently performing. And the tweet was very, very, very threatening. The tweet said, people are going to die at Long Acre just like they did in Aurora, obviously citing to the Aurora massacre that took place a few weeks ago. And what's interesting here is the police had to get a subpoena because Twitter would not voluntarily relinquish that information. So obviously people are up in arms about that and questioning why wouldn't Twitter release that information voluntarily? Why did the police department have to get a court order to get that information?
Well, anything online and social media sites like that, don't they say everything's private? I mean, they really aren't they bound not to disclose your
Twitter
personal information?
they have a policy, an internal policy that allows them within the organization, within the company, to release information if they believe there's an imminent threat that's specific and obviously very, very imminent. And based upon their analysis and their examination of this threat, they did not believe it was imminent.
You know, that's interesting, but I wonder what the timeline was, because sometimes it's just, hey, for red tape, get this sheet of paper in and we're going to give it to you as soon as we can. Do we know the timeline between when the tweet was sent out and when police got the information on the individual?
Well, I think the police requested the information from Twitter relatively quickly. Twitter turned them down, and then they had to issue the subpoena, and they had to get the court to issue a subpoena to actually get that information from Twitter.
So they have the information now?
They now have the information. They've identified and located the individual, and they're currently investigating that case.
All right.
A lot of people hide behind Twitter or Facebook and make these irresponsible either accusations or threats. And I'm hoping it was just somebody that, you know, really wasn't going to try to do it. But there's so many people that do that, and let this be a lesson that, you know, your words are strong and powerful, and they're going to get you in trouble.
Right. And the First Amendment does protect that to some degree. The First Amendment does protect anonymous speech, but it does not protect threatening speech.
I know, you do something like that, you have to be taken seriously.
You have to be taken seriously, and I think.
All right, the last one here, you've got the Tucson shooting update, and suspect Jared Loeffner is in court now.
Yeah, Jared Loeffner actually entered into a plea deal on Tuesday where he agreed to plead guilty to 19 of the charges in exchange for the prosecution taking the death penalty off the table.
Now, did I hear it right? His attorneys basically said he is insane? There was a quote somewhere.
Yeah, and they've acknowledged that he's definitely schizophrenic. He talks, he has voices. I mean, he's definitely insane to some degree. The court issued a judgment on Tuesday that he was fit to stand trial for the first time. So in the past, he hasn't been fit to stand trial. So he's been medicated over the last few months, and now they finally found him fit to stand trial, and then they ultimately entered into this plea agreement.
Did I hear somewhere that there may have been a bit of remorse come out of his mouth over some of these killings?
I think he was slightly remorseful. I don't think it was anything too overboard. I think he is definitely mentally ill, and I think he faces, you know, definitely a number of different problems.
All righty, well, good breakdown today. I mean, it's like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff all at once. We'll see what happens. Good to have you on, Jonathan.
All right, thank you as always.
Okay, can I get everybody in their seats? Can I get everybody in their seats?
Just
Everybody
for
in their
1
seats.
second. Then you can get back up and start dancing because we know you're going to want to.
Now is the time. 10 Grammys, an estimated 70 million records sold worldwide. This Chicago native has become an international supernova. The name Chaka Khan knows no racial, gender, age, or socioeconomic boundaries. Just hearing her name makes you want to stand up and dance. So who are we to stop it?
All right, sit down, stand up, shake your booty, tell your neighbors to give you a little bit of elbow room. It is time to bring back to the stage the Queen of Funk. Ladies and gentlemen, Chaka Khan.
I do. Something about the things you do, baby, makes me satisfied. I would lie to you, baby. It's mainly a spiritual thing. This feeling I got for you, baby. Oh, make me wanna say, I feel for you. I think I love you. Feel for you. I think I love you. Ooh, hey, if you want to dance in the aisles, it's all right with me. If a spirit hits you, it's okay. So what you gonna do for me? Try hard to defend time that I spend Thank you very much. Okay, here's a song I did with in the 80s. How many people can say that they've done songs? I got a song from the 70s for you, from the 80s, from the 90s, and present. It's too long. Happy On is the name of the song. Photograph I mail to you. Feelings I don't wanna think. In the love song of surrender and blue. I remember when you took my breath away. Song by me on. We were very young, like butterflies, like hot butterflies. Just begun. Let it slide on by. Real love. All my memories are burning in time, like a bittersweet perfume. Can you tell me how love that's so fine could have climaxed in a single afternoon? Okay, this is a song from the 70s that I wrote. And if you know it, if you know any of these songs, please sing along with me. I will love you anyway. sweet thing. Oh, you know everything. Oh, sweet thing. Oh, you know everything. Yes, you are. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Tiffany. Want to say, you're my kind, I can't deny. Don't you hear me talking, baby? You're my every night. Don't you hear me talking, baby? Love me out, I go crazy. You're my heat, you are my fire. You're don't you hear me talking, baby? Love me out, I'm crazy. You're my heat, you are my fire. I can't deny. Don't you hear me talking, baby? Love me out, I'll go crazy. You're my heat, you are my fire. You're not mine, can't deny. Don't you hear me talking, baby? Love me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies. This next song I like to say it's a ladies song, but it crosses the gender line, actually. It's really a sort of a, you call it, power song for anybody. Men, women, children, dogs, cats, birds, you know. Thank you for singing. Thank you very much. Sound great. I love you more. How's that? Okay, we're gonna take it up a little bit. Still saying the 70s here. Stuck on the 70s right now. If you know the words, feel free to sing along. You ain't got no kind of inside. I'm dreaming. Want this dream to be real. I needed this feed. Make my wish on the star. Night will last forever. Come on. Ain't nobody love me better. Oh, it makes me happy this way. It makes me feel this way. Ain't nobody, baby, love me better. To me, can't believe I'm the one. Must be low, well, I know what I feel. I'm dreaming, want this dream to be real. I need this feel. Make my wish on a star. Night will last forever. Ain't nobody love me back. Makes me happy this way. It makes me feel this way. Ain't nobody, baby, love me back. Nobody, ain't nobody, love me back. First you put your arms around me, then you put your arms around me. Can't resist this sweet surrender. To each other's eyes, and what we see is all surprise. Got the feeling most will treasure, and a love so deep we can't die. Nobody, it makes me feel this way. This way, ain't nobody, lady, love me better. How amazing was that, y'all? Wow. Are you inspired, San Antonio? This has been such an iconic night for our city. We want to really appreciate the Icon Talks folks for making this the home of the beginning of their journey. These are the founders.
I hope that they have filled you with hope, possibility, and determination. And you got a little exercise, too. Wasn't she amazing? You gentlemen have pulled off an amazing night for us, and I want to thank you on behalf of the city of San Antonio for bringing this amazing program to our city.
That was truly incredible, and I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for coming out tonight. I want to thank Ursula for being my on-stage safety blanket.
Hey, y'all should have seen these guys dancing backstage. They've got moves.
But this night truly was truly about icon to icon, and we really want to make a difference and impact the lives of our kids, because they are our future. They're the future leaders and champions of tomorrow. So as you guys are leaving, we have volunteers out there. If you feel the need to donate, please donate. There are stations out there. And without further ado, I want to bring out Ms. Desiree Serna. She's truly the one behind the scenes, making sure that everything goes smoothly, making sure that all of us are in line. We all live in different cities, you know, but she gives us a schedule and a seamless way of doing things. So without her, this wouldn't be possible. So I want to give it back to Desiree. Thank you so much for coming out. God bless, be safe, and good night.
Two major Hollywood divorces happening. Bethany Frankel and, of course, Kim Kardashian. Plenty of legal drama out there.
Is Kardashian getting divorced? That's the question. All right, Attorney Jonathan Burns is here today. He's got updates on these cases and some other juicy ones from Hollywood. Good to see you, Jonathan.
Good to see you guys, too. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Before we get to the fun stuff, let's talk about, this is a little bit serious, and it has to do with what news came out yesterday about concussions, Junior Seau, and people who were studying his brain.
Right, no, exactly. So scientists at NIH confirmed yesterday that Junior Seau was suffering from basically a debilitating brain disease called CTE, and that was caused by about 2 decades of concussions and hits to the head. So it's kind of bringing the lawsuit. I mentioned a couple months ago now that about 4,000 former NFL players filed a class action lawsuit against NFL, claiming that they knew there was a direct link between concussions and long-term brain damage. So this finding by scientists in NIH further substantiates their claims.
So it really means bad news for the NFL.
It does. They've taken a proactive stance in terms of safety measures and employing safety measures, but the lawsuit they're facing right now is very, very serious. And there's, these players have suffered significant injury and significant life-changing, altercations as a result of that.
So could the league argue, hey, you knew the risks, you signed up to play?
Yeah, they could say that, and they have said that. They knew, obviously, there's inherent risk in playing football, but if the league knew there's a direct link between concussions and long-term brain damage, and they failed to warn and failed to take safety precautions, and that's something they could be ultimately liable for.
And this is that extra piece of information that had been missing.
Exactly.
Until yesterday.
And there's about 34 other players who have been diagnosed with CTE as well, and they've also suffered depression and suicidal tendencies as well.
All right. Well, let's move on to the Bethany Frankel news, filing for divorce from her hubby of just almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years, yeah. So she filed for divorce right around the holiday time. And we all know she's a real housewife and obviously a skinny girl mogul with her alcohol franchise. So she's a very well-off individual. And what people are coming up and kind of questioning is what is her demands in the divorce. She's kind of demanding things that seem kind of outlandish, in addition to the typical things like full custody of their 2-year-old daughter and, retroactive child support. She's also allegedly asking for him to get a life insurance policy and for him to name her and her daughter the sole beneficiaries.
What?
Which seems a little odd. So people are very, very kind of questioning that motivation there.
And they have a prenup, but what about all the money that they jointly made because they both worked together on the Skinny Girl project,
Right.
and they both did the reality show together?
Right. So the prenup won't necessarily classify that type of earnings because those were joint things that they kind of accumulated, those assets they accumulated together over the course of their marriage. So those, it depends on the court ends up basically dispensing those assets, but it most likely 50-50 in terms of what was allocated per individual.
Wow. So, it's kind of a question in my mind. If she has so much money, $55 million?
Yeah,
that's what
they're saying, yeah.
Why would she go to these lengths to try to really stick it to him?
You know what? It's just everybody's questioning that. No motivation or no internal motive from her has been really established. But she's also, mind you, she's also seeking normal things. So she wants, full occupancy of their condominium in New York and typical things. And ultimately, you reach some type of resolution in the middle. So you see oftentimes in divorce proceedings, the sides are at very far extremes. They ultimately meet in the middle.
What about the full custody of the baby? Because he seems like a very hands-on, responsible dad. Is that uncommon?
Well, that's going to be very, very difficult unless there's some, drug or abuse or any type of issue with one of the parents. It's very difficult for one parent to get full custody.
All right. Can we move on to Kim Kardashian? Because I love this, that Kim and Kanye are having a baby.
Right.
But because she's technically still married to, what's his face, Humphreys?
Yeah.
Legally?
You've forgotten already his name.
Legally? It's basically his baby.
Well, technically, California law is very, very interesting because she is still legally married to Chris Humphries, and under California law, there's a presumption that the husband of a pregnant woman is indeed the biological father. So,
well, that's a broad assumption.
Right. Yeah, especially this day and age, and especially in California too. But so if Chris wanted to, it's unlikely he will. He could, push for child custody, and at that point, Kim and Kanye would have to prove that Kanye is actually the biological father and not Chris. So that's a stretch. No one's really suggesting Chris would do that, but under California law, he is presumed to be the father of Kim's baby.
So if there's, why doesn't, she's moved on, he's moved on, why don't they just get the divorce?
Yeah, and well, Kim's saying he's very vindictive and he's kind of really, trying to get back at her. And what he's claiming that he wants her to come forward and admit to the marriage being a fraud and basically give him the $2 million ring back. But she's done neither of the two. So
well, what does she need with the $2 million ring? I mean, it sounds like a lot to us, but in her world, she could give that up.
Especially with dating Kanye, he's pretty well off too. So they do pretty well for themselves.
Situation. It's like Leave It to Beaver, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, right.
All right, Hulk Hogan and a sex tape. First, ew.
Yeah.
Second, what's the latest?
Yeah, so back in October of 2012, he filed a lawsuit against a website called Goddard.com for $100 million. And he also filed a lawsuit in state court against a lady named Heather Glim, who was in the sex tape with him, he claimed that she basically, recorded the tape without his knowledge and then leaked it to the press without his knowledge as well. He has since dismissed the lawsuit against the website company in federal court and then later refiled it this week in state court, and he's trying to consolidate the two lawsuits. So oftentimes you consolidate lawsuits because it's easier to litigate when you kind of litigate all the issues together.
Oh, there's got to be a reason for it, so that's why they did that.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to litigate because you're litigating in two separate forums, and that gets more expensive when you're dealing with the same issues, the same witnesses, the same type of evidence.
So he actually thinks that she's the one that leaked the tape in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah, he was on HuffPost Live talking about he had no knowledge and all things of the sort, and it's been very damaging. So he's seeking $100 million against the website. All
righty. Casey Anthony back in court, too. Now, she was convicted of lying to authorities, and she wants those charges reversed or dropped. How'd that go?
So it's still, the appeal process is still moving forward there. The court hasn't made a final determination. But ultimately, if you guys recall, when the police got first wind of, young Kaylee missing, she told the authorities that a lady named Zenata Gonzalez had taken it, her former nanny. Ultimately, that lady was cleared of all wrongdoing, and, obviously the investigation took a detour because of her lying. So she was brought up on 4 misdemeanor charges of obstruction of justice and lying to police, and then she ultimately appealed those. And now the court's making a final determination on those.
Well, now, is she fighting the fact that she thinks that she didn't lie or that she didn't have representation?
Well, she's fighting the fact. Well, she's fighting the conviction on the 4 misdemeanor counts of obstruction and lying to police. So obviously we have an appellate process for a reason, so she can appeal that conviction.
Okay. Funk singer George Clinton, now he's been ordered to turn over the copyrights to his songs to his attorneys.
Yeah.
Why?
Now, this is a really interesting case. I've never seen a case like this before. George Clinton was in severe legal troubles from 2005 to 2008, hired a pretty high-profile law firm. They worked great for him, had some great outcomes for him. Ultimately, he never paid them. So they filed a lawsuit last year for about $1.5 million. They claimed that he owed about $1.5 million in back pay. Ultimately, the court determined that he had paid about $340,000, so he owed a little over $1 million, but poor George Clinton had no money. So they couldn't recoup any of the funds, any of the money that they were owed. So the court, instead of making him have a money judgment, they said, well, we're going to give your law firm the copyrights to 4 of your songs, and they can basically use them in whatever way they see fit. So most likely they'll sell like the licensing rights to be in commercials or on TV or in movies. And once they recoup the money that they're owed, then the copyrights get transferred back to George Clinton.
Well, at least he gets his copyrights back.
Exactly.
Eventually.
So it's not a bad deal for George Clinton at all, really, if you think about it.
Okay, just could take a little time for the lawyers to get their money, right?
Exactly.
Jonathan Burns, thanks so much for coming in.
All right, thank you
Always
guys.
Fun.